Hello, everyone. In today's lecture, I'll be explaining Sonnet 103 by William Shakespeare, line by line. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more lectures of Shakespeare's sonnets and timeless poetry. Now, let me tell you the background of this sonnet, and then understanding will be a piece of cake for you. Actually, in this sonnet, Shakespeare expresses his frustration as a poet. He feels that his writing isn't good enough to describe the beauty of his beloved. He believes that his words actually take away from their perfection instead of enhancing it. He says that his inspiration is poor and not capable of doing justice to how amazing his friend truly is. In the end, he says that a mirror does a better job, showing his beloved beauty than any poem he could write. All right, now let's explain it line by line. Alack, what poverty my muse brings forth. Shakespeare begins by expressing disappointment in his own poetry. The word alack is an old way of saying oh no or what a pity, and shows that he feels sad or regretful. Are you getting the point? The word poverty here doesn't mean a lack of money, but rather a lack of richness or quality in his writing. He feels his poetry is poor or not good enough. My muse refers to the source of his inspiration, like a spirit or force that gives him the ability to write poetry. In mythology, a muse is a goddess who inspires creativity. Brings forth means produces or creates. So when he says, what poverty my muse brings forth, he's saying that even though he is trying to write something beautiful, all his muse is giving him is weak or unimpressive poetry. In simple terms, Shakespeare feels that his writing is not good enough to describe the person he loves, and he's frustrated that his inspiration is producing such poor results, and then says that having such a scope to show her pride, he continues expressing disappointment in his poetry. The word that refers back to my muse. From the previous line, he's still talking about the source of his inspiration. Having such a scope means having such a wide opportunity or a large range. The word scope refers to the freedom or space, to create something big and beautiful. To show her pride means to display her greatness or excellence. In this case, the muse should be able to write something wonderful to match the subject's beauty and worth. So, putting it all together in simple words, Shakespeare is saying that even though his muse has every chance and opportunity to write something grand and show off her talents, she still fails to do so. He's disappointed that despite the inspiration and potential, the poetry he writes does not live up to the greatness of his beloved. The argument all bear is of more worth. It means that his beloved is more valuable and impressive even without any poetic decoration or praise. The word argument here doesn't mean a fight. It means the topic or subject of the poem, which is his beloved. All bare means plain, undecorated, or without any added beauty from poetic language. And of more worth means more valuable or meaningful. So in the simplest terms, Shakespeare is admitting that his beloved is so beautiful and noble that even when described in plain, simple words with no fancy poetry, it is still more impressive than any poem he could write. He's saying that the natural beauty and worth of the person don't need any poetic enhancement. They shine on their own. Are you getting the point? And then says, then when it hath my added praise beside. He continues his thought from the previous one. He is saying that his beloved is more valuable without his poetic praise than with it. The word hath means has, and my added praise beside refers to the compliments or poetic lines that he adds through his writing. So in simple words, Shakespeare is saying, even without my poetry, you are more wonderful than with it. He's admitting that his attempts to praise his beloved in poetry might actually take away from the natural beauty and worth they already possess. It's a very humble moment. He's saying that his writing adds nothing to their greatness, and perhaps even dulls it. This shows how deeply he admires the person's natural grace, beyond anything words can capture. Oh, blame me not if I no more can write. In this line, Shakespeare is speaking directly to his beloved, asking for understanding. He says, "Don't blame me if I can't write poetry anymore." The word "oh" is an emotional exclamation showing deep feeling. The phrase "blame me not" means don't be upset with me, or don't hold it against me. And "if I no more can write" means if I am no longer able to write poetry. In simple terms, Shakespeare is saying, please don't be upset if I've run out of words or inspiration. He's expressing a kind of poetic exhaustion, not because he's lost interest, but because he feels that nothing he writes can ever do justice to the beauty and worth of the person he's writing about. His admiration is so strong that it overwhelms his creativity. Look in your glass and there appears a face. He is saying something very simple but meaningful. He tells his beloved, just look in your glass, which means look in your mirror. The word glass was used in Shakespeare's time to mean a mirror. He says that when you look in that mirror, you will see your own face. But he doesn't just mean this in a plain or casual way. He means that your face in the mirror is so beautiful and full of grace that it shows more than any poem can describe. Shakespeare is basically saying, why do I need to write poetry to describe your beauty when your reflection already shows it perfectly? He feels that no matter how hard he tries to praise the person in writing, their real face, seen clearly in the mirror, does a better job than his poetry ever could. So the mirror becomes the best proof of their beauty. No words are needed. This shows Shakespeare's admiration, but also a bit of frustration that his words aren't enough to match what he sees in them. That overgoes my blunt invention quite. It means that the beauty of his beloved is far greater than what he can express with his poetry. Are you getting the point? The word overgoes here means goes beyond or surpasses, and blunt invention refers to his own simple or dull imagination. Simply, it refers to his ability of poetry. So when he says, that overgoes my blunt invention quite, he means your beauty is so great that it goes far beyond what my dull poetic imagination can describe. In other words, he's admitting that no matter how hard he tries, his words just can't fully capture how beautiful this person is. His poetry feels too plain or weak in comparison to the actual face or image he's trying to describe. And then says, dulling my lines and doing me disgrace. He continues the thought from the previous one. He says that the unmatched beauty of the person he's writing about is making his poetry seem dull and unimpressive. The phrase dulling my lines means making my poetry seem less sharp, less powerful, or less beautiful. The word lines refers to the lines of his poem, and dulling means they are losing their shine or elegance. And doing me disgrace means bringing shame or embarrassment to me. He feels that because his writing cannot fully capture the person's beauty, it reflects poorly on his skill as a poet. So in simple words, Shakespeare is saying, your beauty makes my poetry look boring, and that makes me feel ashamed. He feels that no matter how hard he tries, his words fall short. It's a humble admission that his beloved beauty is beyond anything he can express with words. Were it not sinful, then, striving to mend? In this line, Shakespeare is saying that it would feel wrong or almost like a mistake to try to improve something that is already perfect. The word sinful here means something bad or inappropriate, and striving to mend means trying to fix or improve. He feels that if he tries too hard to make his poetry better, he might actually ruin what was already good. So in very simple words, he's asking, wouldn't it be wrong for me to try to make my writing better if doing that might end up spoiling something that was already just right? He's being careful, saying that sometimes trying to add too much can actually take away from the natural beauty of his beloved. And then says, to mar the subject that before was well, it means to improve or decorate. Something that is already perfect might actually end up damaging it. The word mar means to spoil or ruin, and subject refers to the person he is writing about, his beloved. That before was well means that the person was already good or perfect as they were. So in the simplest terms, Shakespeare is asking, would it not be wrong or even harmful to try to add fancy words or poetic techniques to describe someone who is already naturally beautiful and flawless? He fears that in trying to polish or enhance the poem, he might accidentally reduce the natural charm and truth of the person he's writing about. This line reflects his humility as a poet and his belief that true beauty doesn't need any artificial praise. It speaks for itself, for to no other pass my verses tend. It means that his poems have no other purpose or direction, except one, to talk about the beauty and qualities of the person he loves. The word pass here means aim, direction, or goal, and tend means to move toward or to focus on. So he's basically saying, my poetry doesn't try to talk about anything else. Actually, he admits that all his writing has always been centered on one thing, describing and praising his beloved. He's not interested in writing about war, politics, nature, or anything else. The only subject he wants to write about is the person he loves. This line shows how deeply focused he is on that one special person, and how even his poetic imagination cannot wander away from them. Are you getting the point? And then says, then of your graces and your gifts to tell. In this line, Shakespeare continues the idea from the previous line. He is saying that his poems only aim to describe and celebrate your graces and your gifts. The word graces means the person's elegance, charm, or beauty. And gifts refers to their talents, virtues, or special qualities. So in simple words, Shakespeare is saying, the only thing I write about is your beauty and your amazing qualities. He's emphasizing again that all his poetry has one main subject, his beloved's goodness, talents, and loveliness. He isn't interested in writing about anything else. His poems are like a mirror that only reflects this one person's charm and worth. This line reinforces how much admiration he has for them and how they are the complete focus of his creative work, right? And then says, and more, much more than in my verse can sit. It means that there is so much beauty, grace, and talent in the person he is writing about than he could ever fully describe in his poetry. The phrase, and more, much more means there is a lot more to this person than he has already written about. And the phrase, than in my verse can sit, means more than what can fit into my poetry, or more than what I can express with words. So in the easiest terms, Shakespeare is saying, you have so many wonderful qualities that I can't even fit them all into my poetry. No matter how much I write, I can never capture all of your greatness. He's humbly admitting that his writing is not enough to fully describe the beauty and perfection of the person he admires. This shows both the depth of his admiration and the limits of his own poetic ability. Your own glass shows you when you look in it. He ends with the mirror again. It means that when you look into your mirror, it shows your true beauty more clearly than I ever could show in my poetry. Your own glass means your mirror. You should keep in mind that in Shakespeare's time, glass was referred to a looking glass or mirror. The phrase shows you means reflects your image or lets you see yourself. And when you look in it means when you look at your reflection in the mirror. So, in very easy words, you can see how beautiful you are just by looking into a mirror. You don't need my poetry to tell you that. Shakespeare is admitting that his poems are not necessary to show the person's beauty, because their reflection already proves how attractive his beloved is. This is a humble and admiring way to end the sonnet, giving the credit to nature instead of his own words. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture, but please like the video and subscribe the channel. Thank you.